You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.
Gold, crude oil, corn, soybeans, and more. With so many tradable products, the futures options market can be an intimidating place. How can you possibly keep track of the latest trading developments across so many different products? Don't worry, we've got you covered. Welcome to This Week in Futures Options, the program designed to help active futures options traders stay on top of this ever-changing marketplace. Each week, we'll break down the top trades, hot products, volatility explosions, and much more. This Week in Futures Options streams live every Friday at 1:30 p.m. Central, so be sure to check out our live stream via the Mixlr app. That's MIXLR. Or join our live chat room at mixlr.com/options-insider. Whether you're an experienced veteran or a newcomer looking to separate the wheat from the lean hogs, This Week in Futures Options has the information you can't find anywhere else. This Week in Futures Options is brought to you by QuikStrike, options pricing and analysis software. QuikStrike offers powerful and flexible options analysis and pricing tools via an easy-to-use web-based interface. View prices on outright options or spreads with comprehensive page-level analysis controls. Build trades, manage risk, or explore historical volatility. QuikStrike has you covered with market data reports ranging from open interest to the term structure of volatility. QuikStrike is the perfect addition to your trading toolkit. Learn more about QuikStrike at bantix.com. That's BANTIX.com. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at QuikStrike1. That's QuikStrike1. This Week in Futures Options is also brought to you by CME Group, the world's leading and most diverse futures and options exchange. CME Group's markets help individuals and businesses around the world manage risks and seize opportunities. CME Group offers the deepest and most liquid options on futures across all asset classes, including interest rates, equity indexes, foreign exchange, energy, agriculture, and metals. For more information and educational resources about futures options at CME Group, visit cmegroup.com/options. And now, get ready to break down the latest futures options trading activity. It's time for This Week in Futures Options.
All right, everybody. That tune means it's time for TWIFO. This Week in Futures Options, a program where we break down all that cool stuff you guys like on the other side of the fence. So we're talking quick skew, maybe, and the metals and the golds and the energy, maybe lean hogs. You never know. Some indices slip in there all the time as well. So pretty much across the broad spectrum of all the products, really, that are trading over there on Globex at CME Group. My name is Mark Longo from the OptionsInsider.com, as well as, of course, on the ever-exciting Options Insider Radio Network. If you see, I sound a little bit different than I did throughout the rest of the week. Yep, I'm back in Chicago, back in the studio after my tour of Florida conferences, the Risk Management Conference, and then the big FIA Expo. By the way, I had a chance to catch up with our friends Derek Salmon and Blue Putnam from CME Group this week down at FIA. It's live on the network right now, so you guys can check that out. We talked about a lot of interesting milestones they're seeing over there in terms of options, some interesting research Blue and his team is doing on a variety of different areas. Maybe even pressed him a bit on when we might see some crypto and some Bitcoin options coming our way. So check that one out on the network if you haven't done so already. I believe it just went live this morning. So fun stuff. A lot of great stuff, actually, recorded at both conferences. So stay tuned to the network for those. We had some coming out already this week. More will come out next week. Had a chance to sit down with a lot of great people from a lot of different aspects of the space. So stay tuned for that. And of course, while you're listening, make sure you head on over there to the old cmegroup.com/Twifo. That's where you can get the live charts so you can see everything Nick and I are talking about and breaking down and analyzing on the show as well. And of course, you can always listen live every Friday via Mixlr, MIXLR, 1:30 p.m. Central, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Then once states start playing with daylight savings time, who knows what time it will be for you in your local time zone. But right now, that's how it breaks down over there. Check us out, and however you listen, make sure you hit us up. Questions, comments, insights, pearls of wisdom. I know my voice is sounding a little raspy. I've been talking for a long time, a week and a half or so, really straight. So, but I think I got enough to get through this last show of the weekend. To help me do just that, let me bring on my cohort, my partner in crime, Mr. Nick Howard, the founder of Bantix Technologies and the creator of a little platform we've used once or twice called QuikStrike. Mr. Nick, welcome back to the show, sir. How are things in the land of all things striking rapidly?
Oh, yes, the play on QuikStrike. Oh, pretty good.
Yes,
glad it's Friday.
My word play is too much for you, sir. I'll dial it back.
Too much. It's a warm weather word play, and we're in cold weather word play here. I guess I'm a little bit frozen and can't keep up. All is well. It's Friday, so it's good to get this week over with and see what we got going today.
Nick, you missed the big FIA show last week, the Futures Industry Association. Would you like me to sum it up for you in one word?
Yes, I would. I'm interested to hear what this is.
You can probably guess what that word is. Crypto.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Really?
It's funny. Both conferences I went to, both featured the Winklevoss twins as kind of keynote speakers there, which is ironic. Can you imagine? I talked about this before with some people. Can you imagine a year ago, either of those conferences, anyone even broaching the subject of crypto? They would have got laughed out of the room. And now, a year later, it's the keynote topic. There were, I think, 3 or 4 crypto panels at FIA alone, So it's inescapable. It was called down there, the biggest thing since the internet. It's going to revolutionize all things and all times. So a lot of hyperbole being thrown around. We'll see if we get some actual action to offset it. I know some of the products the futures have been doing fairly decent volume, about 7,000 contracts a day or the equivalent over there on the CME version. So decent action actually for a new product. That's actually pretty good. So not a lot of new products come out of the gate with 7,000 contracts a day. So interesting stuff. But yeah, Nick, if you said you went to a crypto conference a couple of weeks ago in New York, you didn't know FIA Boca had now become a crypto conference, sir. So there you go. I just filled you in for the entire week, saved you a lot of trouble.
Yeah, that's actually really surprising that they would hit that so hard there, given that I think that a lot of the participants still aren't completely on board with the whole thing. So it'll be interesting to get other people's takes on the concentration of that discussion. I want to talk to a few people from the CME, see what they have to say.
Yeah, I did this week. I actually asked Derek that topic, but it just doesn't seem like they're ready for the options, at least yet. So everyone was hitting us up. Got to wait a little bit longer. I know we had the polls last year and early this year, so a lot of people were picking Q1. Clearly not going to happen on the Bitcoin options right now for Q1. Looking like Q2 may even be a little bit optimistic at this point, given all the feedback I'm hearing. So maybe a lot later in 2018 than a lot of people were hoping. Speaking of which, we asked you guys before the show. I'll give you some time to ruminate on this as well, Mr. Nick. We'll talk about the answers later. Our flash poll for today. This one's expiring today, so if you're not listening live, you miss it. We ask you, what would you rather see first? Would you rather see options finally listed on Bitcoin futures, or would you prefer to have more crypto futures listed? Maybe Litecoin, maybe Ethereum. Would you rather have those launched instead? So we gave you those choices, or we gave you a third choice, which is just save me from more crypto. You guys are voting. Make your voices heard. I'll give you some time to mull that one over, Mr. Nick, as we go on to our first topic of the day, our first product category. That one, when that poll just went live a little bit before showtime, listeners. So if you haven't seen it yet, you got some time. You got the rest of the day. I think we'll start off in the land of the Texas tea, the black gold. Interesting stuff out here. It was an interesting week for all things crude. We thought it was going to go one way. Seemed like it was going to come another way towards the end of the week. Saw some big reports coming out of groups like IEA, again, which said global oil supply increasing in February by 700,000 barrels from a year ago. That's pushing 98 million barrels a day. Just think about that for a minute, listeners. 98 million barrels a day. That's a lot of supply. That's a lot just hanging over the markets. I know all you crude bulls don't like to hear that, but it's a lot of supply hanging out there. For all you out there who are loading up on 80, 90, and par calls out there, maybe hard to kind of break through that. I was actually talking, Nick, with some regulators out of Canada at the FIA conference, one of the few non-crypto people I got to chat with, and they were saying, just remarking on how much more efficient the shale oil and the oil sands up there in Calgary and all those producers have become in the wake of OPEC's move to cut the prices. They've all really pooled their efforts and pooled their efficiency technology. So the old saw was that you couldn't produce out of those, oil sands at below $75 a barrel. Now they're saying it's down to like 30, 35. So they can easily make money in this environment where WTI is around 62, 63. So maybe OPEC, maybe in hindsight, I'm sure there'll be a lot of analysis done on this. Maybe OPEC's move perhaps came back to bite them a little bit. They also said out of IEA that producers outside of OPEC, led by, of course, the U.S., is going to grow by nearly 2 million barrels a day this year. That's compared to about 760,000 barrels a day last year. So all this data continues to point towards a lot of supply coming in. We're still seeing, mixed numbers on the demand, and of course, at the end of the day, it's all like Econ 101. You got those supply and demand curves, and how they line up is where crude goes this week, ending the week slightly up, about half a handle from where we were this time last week, right around 62.5 out there in all things crude. The vol up slightly out here, but still kind of, shall we say, paltry out here in terms of where the vol is. We haven't seen that big move that really needs to set the vol up to the next level. By the way, of course, you guys can follow along. CMEgroup.com/Twifo. In terms of what was leading the charge out here this week, about half of the volume. By the way, a robust week, about 5.6% in terms of growth of open interest this week. That's pretty strong out here in WTI. All of that paper, about nearly half of it, about 49%, coming in the May contract, actually. And what was lighting it up? Well, we said before, people like their even levels, their even price levels out here in WTI, and that's kind of exactly what we saw out here again this week, with a lot of concern about would it retreat below that 60 handle maybe, or right around that level. So 60 puts out there in May leading the charge, doing about 22,000 contracts and change. The lion's share actually coming up today. Nearly 7,000 contracts on the tape today, followed by Monday with about 5,000, and the rest kind of scattered throughout the week, just slightly closing on the week. So again, that shows how much activity was floating around the overall strike there, which is kind of interesting, that given that amount of size and amount of volume, and yet only slightly biased towards the closing. If you say that's a little bit too close to the at the money, you want to go a little bit farther out. 57 puts coming in on our number 2 list here for WTI, about 17,500 of those contracts lighting it up this week. Pretty much an even tie between today and Tuesday, with about 5,500 contracts each. Again, more biased towards the opening here, though, about 4,300 contracts net opening here on these 57 puts in May. Then we have a little bit of a tie for pretty close to it, a slight winner in terms of our number 3 hot spot here in the overall crude options action, with the 67 calls also in May, taking the 3rd spot, just a tick under 13,000 going up there. The lion's share on Wednesday at about 6,000 or close to it going up there, and about 1,000 biased openings. So still some people opening on the upside there, perhaps thinking all this supply talk overdone. We've certainly seen crazier things followed hot on its heels by the 55, the double puts, doing about 12,500 contracts. Net opening about 1,500. The lion's share going up today again. Actually, a bit of a close tie between today and Wednesday. Slight edge to Wednesday, about 3,600 versus about 3,400 going up today. So interesting action. Let's just do our usual scroll out here to see if we can see any exotic strikes lighting it up. Apparently, all this talk about supply, Mr. Nick, is perhaps not dissuading people from doing a little bit of upside action. We saw the 80 calls out there in DESA this year, fairly active this week as well with about 16,000. So actually those would come in on terms of probably like a number 3 on the list. They actually usurping some of those 57 puts we were just talking about. So a lot of action actually on this 80 strike. The lion's share actually yesterday, 12,500 going up there at about 3,000 on Tuesday. So again, nearly 17,000 going up there, about 2,600 of that opening. So net opening positioning on the 80 strike. Could be overriding, could be people coming in and saying, they think all this supply talk is overdone and they want to get in while the getting is good. Dees 80 calls where the action is. If that's not quite bullish enough for you, then we go back to March 2019 and the 85 calls, doing a whopping almost just a little bit under 9,000 contracts. All of that pretty much going up on Thursday. Nothing trading the rest of the week. So one big block going up on Thursday, and about 3,700 or so of that was opening, which is interesting in and of itself. So if you guys are out there feeling the bullish love, you're not the only ones. There was a little bit of downside playing out here as well. If you're feeling maybe all the supply gut's going to push us to the dark side, someone else maybe was feeling you as well. The Dees 2019 35 puts lighting it up this week to the tune of about 2,400, 1,600 on Tuesday, and 800 on Wednesday. So there you go, Mr. Nick. A little bit of a dichotomy of opinion yet again. People still, despite all this supply numbers, still loading up on perhaps some upside here, but also some players to the deep, deep dark side. Anything catching your eye out here, Mr. Nick, from a skew or vol perspective in WTI this week, sir?
I just tweeted May delta-based volatility curves, so we could take a look and see what the skew's doing. Thank you for getting that reverb out of my ear. I was having a hard time taking myself seriously there. So we got the new curve. I tweeted out the curve, and I mostly wanted to do that to give support to the quick skew numbers that are indicating that the puts definitely got a little bit softer throughout the course of the week, and the calls got a little less cheap in comparison. So like you stated, not much in terms of volatility, really only a $0.50 change in the at the money. So we wouldn't expect to see much movement along that belly of the volatility curve. So any change that we are seeing here is going to be based on, the move itself. So the front contracts, the May and the June, showing a little bit of a change, and definitely seeing some change in the skew. So a little less bid to the downside, a little less offer to the upside, and you probably seeing that pretty much across the board, all the way out, at least for the first year, all the way out to December, and then some. But really pay attention to the contracts with the biggest open interest, which is going to be the May and the June contract. So, I mean, outside of verifying that that's the case, and what we can do here as well, we can poke out quick skew chart so you guys can take a look and see how this looks this week. We'll do the May as well. And really, Mark, you said most of what was going on. There was some big news this morning about how there was a move up without much news. And, when I saw that, I didn't go right to the application to take a look and see what was going on. But, once I got there, I was a little bit disappointed. I'm starting to think that, the news headlines are just really, look at that. That's shocking, right? That they tend to make things seem a lot more spectacular than they really are. So really nothing happened. We saw that move up. Volatility didn't do too much. And again, part of the reason is because we're in the middle of a range here. So as we start to, keep kind of flipping and flopping back within this range, we're going to see the same things happen. We're going to see the skew kind of settle in, maybe balance off a little bit, seeing it balance here pretty good. 5% in the June, a 5% richness in the puts in the June is about a little over 1 in the volatility, and 3% cheap in the calls is about a little less than 0.5%. So you're not seeing that big of a spread between the call and the put, about almost a little over 1 3/4 volatility in that. So there's a little bit of obvious tilt to the downside, but slope up to the downside, tilt down to the upside, right? So we're going top left, bottom right. That's what our slash looks like, but really not a tremendous amount of interesting things going on here, other than the fact that, we we see, because we didn't move in the at the money, that we definitely see the quick skew the channel kind of tightened a little bit.
Yeah, it has been interesting to watch. You're right, because it seemed like the narrative coming into this morning was going to be a sell-off in crude, and then when I finished with my other shows, I pulled up the numbers for crude, and I was surprised to see we're actually up a little bit. So you're right, catching a lot of people perhaps by surprise, given the fact that the overwhelming preponderance of the data this week seemed to be on the bearish side for crude. Maybe the bulls saying, not so much. We got a little bit of room to run on the upside, and we're going to take it. What wasn't running to the upside this week, Mr. Nick? It was the shiny stuff. It was gold, not getting the love. Gold bulls, not feeling those. Crude gold bugs. Easy for me to say. Not feeling the love this week. Finishing off the week off about 10 handles out there, right around the 13-15 level out there. We've been saying it for a while, kind of beating the dead horse out here in gold, but the gold ball, it's anemic. I think Eric was talking about on the show. I think Drew mentioned it, or Blue mentioned it when I was talking to him this week. The gold ball is just in the proverbial toilet. So if you are looking to get long some premium and you like to capture some of these moves, then maybe this is the case for it. I know Nick has his rent metric. Maybe he can bust that out on gold. But weeks like this, you get a little bit of a move. It might end up paying for itself, even though you keep saying how cheap the gold ball is, and every week it seems like it erodes a little bit further, which is interesting in and of itself. Net OI kind of light this week, only up about a little bit shy of 4%, about 3.9%. So not a ton of volume pouring in on this downside move here in all things gold. What was lighting it up, though, came in terms of where the action was this week. It was pretty much a little bit more than a third, so a little bit light this week in terms of usually close to half, and this time only about a third going up in that April contract. And where the action was actually in, again, even number love come into play here in gold, with these 1,300 puts doing just a little bit under 8,000 contracts this week out here in April, with the lion's share actually today, about 3,000 and change going up today, 2,000 yesterday, the rest kind of scattered throughout the week. Ready for this, Nick? 4 contracts net opening on the week, so a lot of back and forth on the 1,300 puts out here in April. Then we kind of fall off a little bit here to the 1,340 calls, which is an interesting strike selection. Don't see that one lighting it up too often. Doing about 4,200 contracts this week. Again, the lion's share today, about 1,600, nearly 1,700 going up today. The rest almost evenly scattered throughout the week. And that slightly closing. Again, but we got paper going up today, so we'll have to see how today's numbers shape up later on when we get the OI changes for those. Hot on its heels are the 13 half calls, a strike we see a lot more on the list, doing about 4,200 contracts, 1,200 coming today, about 1,000 yesterday. The rest kind of scattered throughout the week. Again, only slightly opening, but again, we also only have the numbers going through till today, so we'll see how today's total adds to that. In terms of, then we got 10 puts, number 4, 37.50 on our top 5 list here with the lion's share again today. So today was a big driver for all the action, slightly biased towards closing here on the week. Let's see if we round out our top 5 with about the 1290 put. So interesting strikes. Again, all of this in the front month here, listeners. All of this in the April contract, doing about 3,400 contracts. 2,300 of that coming today. So I won't even bore you with the OI numbers because we don't know for today. About 3,400 contracts going up there. And in terms of weird paper, we always love scanning in gold, Mr. Nick, because there's always something weird afoot out here in terms of if you're one of those gold bugs, then you saw some paper going up today. In particular, we saw the SEP 1700s going up about 15, almost 1,600 times. Most of that went up yesterday. A couple hundred going up today, but the lion's share going up yesterday. We also saw the 1400s going up out there in SEP about 1,400 times. Again, on Thursday, maybe a bit of a 1,400, 1,700 vertical going up that day. We'll have to see, or maybe someone deciding perhaps to roll too. Looks like both go up the same day. Looks like that paper might be related. I'll have to dig into the blocks to find out for sure. And then, of course, downside players were not excluded this week as well. The Dees 2018 11.5 puts doing about 1,400 contracts, almost all of that coming on Monday, about 1,150 going up on Monday. Pretty much all that opening. So someone opening out there in the Dees 11.5 puts. So for all of you out there who perhaps don't think the downside is done in gold, someone out there agreeing with you. My favorite one of these, though, Mr. Nick, If you're saying, 1,700, that's bullish, but not quite optimistic enough, then allow me to introduce you to these June 2019 1,800 calls, lighting it up 1,100 times this week. About 5 evenly split between Thursday and Wednesday. About 550 on Thursday and about 525 on Wednesday, and a whopping 56 going up today. So actually trading a little bit this week. Total of about 1,131, net about half of that opening, which is interesting. So you think more of that would be opening on that strike. Kind of fascinating. Also, the 15 halves going up for 250. Maybe there's a bit of a ratio there on Thursday as well. And there were even, lest I leave them out, also 200 of the 19 halves going up this week. So if you're a super gold bug, perhaps you are not alone out there. Mr. Nick, always good for some fun paper out here in gold. What was catching your eye out here from a vol skew and just a general vol perspective? Are we paying the rent in gold this week?
I have to think that, looking, I tweeted out the historical 30-day volatility for a 3-year period. And if you look, you see the orange chart. That's the historical actual volatility is over the implied volatility. So, yeah, I think we're definitely paying the rent here. There were some moves. There were some, significant moves up and down within the range. And given the volatility is in, single digit, low, not low, but low it's been in a long time. Again, if I'm looking at the chart here, we could go a little bit lower than we are right now on the 30-day. But let's see. I mean, all red across the entire term structure. We got the puts kind of flattened out to that. The money not quite as cheap as they were, and moving more towards in the 30 to 40-day option, moving more towards flat to that. The money, the calls are a little less expensive. So again, kind of moving within this range, not making much of a decision. It's almost like there's a rolling pin on some dough, flattening out the middle of that pizza vol curve, right? So pretty soon we're just going to get the crust, and we're going to have that flat middle in the until we decide which direction we're going to go. But looking at the historical chart, we see that we haven't seen the ratio go much lower than it is. When I say the ratio, I'm saying the implied volatility over the historical actual volatility. This is as low as it's been in the last 3 years. Doesn't mean it can't stick around there. There's been periods of time where it stayed low for a little bit, but I would think that you're going to see either the actual movement of the futures start to be less volatile, or an increase in the implied volatility. So, but I would think that we're probably going to end up getting less movement in the underlying, and it will move towards the market implied volatility. So it doesn't look so good for gold right now. Given it's sort of absorbed whatever bad news that keeps coming out of Washington and whatever other market bad news, no shocks or anything that seem to be, or at least none that we see right now. So if we trend along here, we're going to see this, the actual probably flatten out a little bit, and we might see this volatility come in even more than it already has. But you mentioned the 1,800 strike. It looks like was. Did you say it was in June 19? Is that what you said? I didn't hear. I just heard 1,800 strike. Did you say June 19 or December 19?
It was June.
Yeah. So that was part of a covered. That was a call spread that traded a handful of times on the 15th, and probably on another day as well. So I don't think there was any outrights trading out there, more spreads, and those getting covered on top of it. So, and it looked like 1 by 2. So I'm guessing that it's probably buying 1 and selling 2. If it makes, I wouldn't see doing it the other way. So it was probably more selling, somebody selling that strike. Obviously somebody bought it if they were on the other side of the market, but the initiator there, I have to believe, is the seller of 2. So yeah, I mean, there's only so much you could say when the market's not doing too much here, and we like to watch these products, but we also like to watch them as we're going all the way out to this, all the way out. August contract is below 10 volatility, so and the SEP, OC, NOV, and DES are within 1 vol point of that. So we're getting a flat term structure in both price and volatility. So that market looks like we might be sitting around for a little bit of time.
You know, it's not sitting around right now, Mr. Nick. In fact, I'm looking at it right now, is our old friend Bitcoin. We haven't talked about it in a while, but since it was all the rage at FIA this week, maybe we want to put it back into the rotation. Looking at it right now over there on the CME page, doing about 2,700 contracts so far. Remember, that's a 5x multiple there, listeners. So that's a lot of paper going up. Up about 300 handles right now, Mr. Nick. So actually, Bitcoin getting a little bit cheaper than I thought. Looks like about 85.35 for that front month contract, which is kind of interesting. I go away for a week and Bitcoin, go figure, it moves, huh?
Yeah, well, keep in mind, and you said you're over on the CME Group website. We have on QuikStrike on the benchmark pages, it's also available within QuikStrike Essentials, the free version on the CME Group website. We have the Bitcoin real-time index that's chartable out there all the way back to its entirety of history. And we have, the real-time index, yes, we're going to show that the same way. Then there's also the reference rate, which is the settlement that happens every day at 10 o'clock. So those are chartable out there, as well as the futures, where you can see the charts and the volume and the overall open interest. So, yeah, 1,250 contracts in the March are open, twice plus that trading today in volume, and starting to see a little bit of an increased open interest in the April contract. Not much out in May or June, but from a volatility standpoint, if we take a look at that and see what we have, we look at the long term. I mean, we are probably, the historical vol right now is, let's see, roughly around 94%, it looks like, and the implied at the money volatility looks around 90%. And if we take that and we believe our numbers here, that would put an at the money straddle priced, let's call it a 7-day at the money straddle, if we're kind of throwing things around, priced at about $825 for an 8,500 strike. So we're looking at about a 90 volatility, and that's for the day over day over the course of a year. So an annual vol, typical annual vol calculation, and the short-term volatility calculations that we look at, those are pretty much right in line with the annual. So that's just telling you that we're moving away from some of those big moves that we have, and we're kind of getting into a stabilized volatility environment. So if I had to guess, I'd say it's roughly between 85 and 90% for the Bitcoin at the money volatility. But don't forget, there's good stuff out there on the CME Group website via the QuikStrike Essentials, where you can see both the index, what's going on during the day, what's going on historically, and also what's going on with the futures. And then also, if you're interested in some other Bitcoin stuff, we have another offering that you can give us a call about, and that's where you can see some of the volatility numbers that I'm talking about today.
Yeah, that's interesting, actually, because I remember last week was around, 106? So it's actually come off in the week since we did this show, down to about 90, which maybe surprised a lot of people given the fact that at least it's moving today and tends to move quite a bit, but vol, like you mentioned, kind of settling into that range. And what did you say the historical average was, around 94%, something in that range?
No, right now we're at 94. The average over the last year is about 100. So we're right around the average. So, it's... These tend to. This has been reverting back to its mean quite a bit, especially when you start looking at the shorter stuff. Now, the shorter stuff is at the high end of a 1 standard deviation around the mean. So that might have, again, who knows? It's just indications, right? But maybe we'll establish a new kind of baseline volatility from a price movement standpoint, or we have some more room to move down in the near term. So maybe we trend along here for a while. It's hard to, it's funny. I find my enthusiasm wanes based on the height of the index itself. So I think people are more excited as they see a higher number, and less excited as they see the number kind of go back into a stabilizing territory. But the actuality of it is probably wanted in the stabilized territory, so it could start to be looked at as something where there's an actual valuation that can take place, as opposed to just a pure speculative purchase or sale.
Yeah, it is interesting to watch it. And yeah, you're right. With Bitcoin shy of the 10,000 level here, I wonder if that will take some bloom off the rose. Didn't last time. I talked to a lot of people down there at the conference who claimed to have scooped claim to have scooped Bitcoin around those levels. Of course, you can't take any of those seriously. Nick, you were a former floor guy. You know, all the people who offer that stuff up to you, 90% of them are, shall we say, at the very least, exaggerating. Everyone always buys the dips and sells the tops. It's amazing how that works, Nick. It's like the fishing stories. You know, you can't trust them.
They've never scalped Gamma then if they've done that. So I don't know if that's necessarily true. Anybody who's ever hedged their options is going to sell the high or buy the high and sell the low. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see if there's any IRS going after any of these Bitcoin millionaires.
Yeah, when I lost count, how many people told me last week that they had paid for their kids' college in crypto recently. So hopefully that's true. But I've learned to be cynical of those kind of things over the years. You know what was moving and shaking, though? We can just find that right now. You guys can as well. Head over to cmegroup.com/Twifo. We can find the big movers and the shakers for this week over there on CME. We know they trade a lot of stuff over there, full range of products. And let's see what the biggest movers and shakers. Again, this is just pure underlying to pure futures. We're not taking vol into consideration, not taking change or open interest, and none of that stuff. Just straight up underlying. Let's see what was moving over the past week. Let's start up with the upside. We got our old friend RBOB up about 2% on the week. Number 2, soybean oil up about 1.7%. Lean hogs, our old friend, a little bit of hashtag hog love, up about 1.6%. Number 3. Number 4, heating oil up about 1.5%. And round out the top 5 is the Ultra, actually, over there, which is about 1.4%. Got lumber. Add another one in, lumber for our top 6. Up over a little bit more than 1%. Today on the downside, we got Oats taking it on the chin this week, off about 7.5%. Number 2, wheat, 4.3% to the downside. KC wheat coming up, number 3, about 4.2%. Number 4, the live cattle off about 2.5%. And rounding out the top 5 is corn, off about 2% on the week. So a little bit of movement out there in the old ags. Mr. Nick, any other products catching your eye? You want to roll on into what our listeners have on their mind?
Yeah, let's roll on. It sounds like a good day to take some questions because it really was unexciting, at least in the products that we looked at today.
Well, we'll see if we can get the excitement factor up with you guys on the show. It's time for a little bit of your futures options feedback.
It's time for your questions, comments, and insights. It's time for Futures Options Feedback. Submit your questions at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, stocktwits.com/optionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com. You can also submit your feedback via our Options Insider Radio Network mobile app, available for iOS, Android, and Kindle Fire devices. You can even ask your questions live every Friday at 3 p.m. Central via our Mixlr chat room. So grab the Mixlr app or just search for Options Insider at Mixlr.com. That's MIXLR.com.
All right, everybody, welcome to your portion, the feedback portion, where you guys take the reins. Sometimes we ask you guys questions as well, like we did this week. We put a little flash poll up before the show. It's a quick one. It's only going to be going for another few hours here today, so get your votes in soon. And we asked you guys really quickly, and pretty much since everyone's got crypto on the brain over all these events I went to over the past week, we thought we'd ask you, what would you rather see first? Would you rather see options finally listed on Bitcoin futures, or would you prefer to see more of these other cryptos like Litecoin or Ethereum or some others listed as futures instead? So 3 choices. Give me Bitcoin options, more crypto futures, or save me from more crypto. Mr. Nick, what is your vote? And then what do you think our audience is voting for, more importantly?
Well, I won't say the second part because I voted because and I know that I see the results after I vote, and I'm not surprised. But me personally, I would prefer to see futures on other indexes because you can't have options without futures. So I'd rather see the futures come on like Litecoin and Ripple and the whatever, Bitcoin Cash, the ones that actually, have some initial viability. So I'd like to see futures first and then options because you can't have one without the other. You can't put the cart before the horse, right? So
Yeah, interesting. I lean more towards I would like to have some Bitcoin options because I'm not going to sling these futures. I don't want to short them and I don't want to be long them. At least not without some sort of hedging or other instrument. And I just don't personally sling a lot of underlying anyway. I'm much more clearly of an options guy, so that's the way I like much rather approach a product. So if there's no options, I'm probably not going to play, and I'm missing out on all this fun, juicy goodness out here in Bitcoin. So personally, I'm going to vote for the Gimme Some Bitcoin options. And so far, surprise, surprise, our audience is going that way as well. 60% saying they want those Bitcoin options. Tie for number 2 with more crypto futures and save me from crypto. I feel you on that one. I was starting to feel like that towards the end of this week when after several events and just an overwhelming tsunami of just crypto hyperbole. It's a little much. I understand where you're coming from. But I think the options would certainly open the doors to a bunch of people, including myself, who aren't playing with it right now, but certainly would if there were options on a listed underlying. You know, Nick, and all the crypto talk, I was talking to a bunch of people this week, and they're giving me some horror stories about, you know, you played around with some of these a little bit yourself, just executing. People complain about fragmentation in the options world. Crypto is a whole other ball game. You know, you have so many, I think a bunch of exchanges launched, I think last week, exchanges in air quotes. And, you know, just the horror stories I've heard from people of, you know, you have to transfer one coin to another one to buy this coin. And then, you know, you have this period where you take your address for your wallet and you copy it out of one thing and you paste it into the other. And then you see your balance maybe on Coinbase is 0 because it's already been transferred out. But then the other one is still 0. And you're just waiting in this weird digital no man's land for your money to change hands so you can buy the next coin. It can take up to 6 hours sometimes. So there's a lot that really needs to be improved from just a basic functionality standpoint, you know, before it's up to the levels I think you and I and a lot of our audience would expect from a viable, liquid, listed market. You know, it's clearly not there yet, but there's also clearly a groundswell of interest with these things, so you can't ignore it. But it is certainly interesting to see about all these things. So let's go on to some of our questions here, Nick. This first one, Scott writing in. Hashtag Twifo. He says, I think you misspelled it here. Is the current relationship between 27 handles in the S&P futures similar to a 1.5 move in VIX futures still holding up? He's got a lot of these ratios on the brain. He wrote in with a ratio on the last show for something else. I forgot what it was. It was like a 10-to-1 S&P to VIX one, and we weren't sure what he was going on about there. Maybe we'll route this one to Vol views, because that's where we get more into the VIX futures term structure in here and how it moves in relationship to the big S&P. But that's a good question. I'll have to look and see if it is somewhere around 27 handles or perhaps maybe a little bit different. I haven't done that due diligence in a little bit. This is actually, I should have mentioned this at the top of the show, Nick. This question coming in from HFL9, I should give him or her some credit, because they kind of inspired our question of the week this week. They asked us, would you rather see options on Bitcoin futures or more futures listed on more crypto products first? A great question. We liked it so much, we turned it into our question, or at least a little flash poll today. Not really a question of the week, but a little flash poll. So we got to give them a little bit of love there, because they're inspiring us over there. Olive Trader 2 chiming in, must be listening now, saying, thanks for talking about gold vol. There you go, Nick. People loving the gold vol. I think we talk about gold vol a lot. We don't get a lot of people complaining about not enough gold vol. Maybe, do we not do enough gold, Nick?
Oh, no, I think we do plenty of gold. I think that people wish us, I really wish there was more volatility in gold. It would be great, you know, because I like talking about it. I like watching. I think it's a good market I think it's a good trading market, even when volatility is low, to be honest with you. So it's, I'm glad to talk about it every week if that's what people want. No problem at all.
Well, at least Olive Trader 2 here wants that. Of course, whenever we get that input, Nick, we get other people who want every other product on the planet. They want every esoteric thing, lumber, lean hogs. So can't please all the people, but we try. And when things are moving, we'll certainly get them in here on the show. Like I said, this one a little quiet today, actually. As my staff pointing out, kind of like a bit of a holiday, at least here in Chicago anyway. You got St. Patrick's Day weekend coming up, which, if you've ever been to Chicago around this time, you know is a pretty big deal. And, of course, NCAA, so I think a lot of people are kind of already getting ready, maybe getting a head start, shall we say, on the St. Patty's Day holiday with some green beer and some other good stuff. Reverend TimTom, I like that. just maybe RevTimTom, I don't know, saying, what is your favorite way to trade skew? That's a good question. We talk about a lot of skew here on this show, as you might imagine, a.k.a. quick skew, trademark, QuikStrike. So we obviously like skew. We talk about it a lot. I'm going to go back to the old saw, the one I've always liked, the one I've always used. It's kind of implied in the name, which is the risk reversal. Typically, I'll use them as a bullish risk reversal. I don't come around very often on the bearish risk reversal, aka also known as a collar, a lot. Usually that's tied in with the underlying, and I don't trade a lot of underlying. I'll stay with the options. So sometimes I will, but usually if I had to say myself right now, it probably is the bullish risk reversal. It's a great way for a lot of people out there to get some sort of decent, approximate delta exposure to an underlying you may like. Take advantage of some skew distortions to do that at a fairly attractive price. We're always talking about your basic 25 delta put and your 25 delta calls, how people usually measure skew. So if you sell a bullish risk reversal like that, you got at least 50 deltas in that underlying that you're now long. So you get a nice approximate bullish exposure, but you're certainly not costing you as much as buying the underlying, or certainly buying some sort of at-the-money product. You've got the taking advantage, it depends on the product obviously, but in a lot of equities and indices certainly is taking advantage of the skew shape. The puts are going to be bib, the calls are going to be cheaper, so taking advantage of that to work in your favor. And you have the puts financing the call. Hopefully, if it's dependent on the product, maybe you can get a little bit of a credit to do it. And you get nice bullish exposure, you get a little bit of a credit. And as long as you identify your levels where you're okay picking up the underlying, if it does come to pass, or along those lines, then you're pretty much good to go. So if I had to pick one, Mr. Nick, and there's a lot of ways you can do it, obviously strangles, a bunch of other things, very wide other types of spreads. But I think a nice bullish risk reversal is my go-to in a pinch. Mr. Nick, what are you feeling here for RevTimTom?
Well, I like variants of that. You hear me talk about it all the time. With depending on where the market is and what it's doing, right? I like to buy the cheap option and hedge it, whether that be a put on the downside of a range, or the call, buying it and selling futures on the top side of the range. I also always liked, if I thought an out of the money was getting cheap or expensive. If it was getting cheap on the downside, I would buy a put spread. If it was getting or I would sell the put spread, sell the at the money, buy the cheap one, and vice versa. If it was expensive, same thing on the upside. And then I'll call it the quick skew trade, where we do the risk reversal, whether it be bullish or bearish risk reversal, and then I like hedging when volatility's out of whack, because you want to make the money back on the vol. I don't necessarily think of it from a directional standpoint, but if you hedge it with an at the money synthetic. So there, essentially what you're doing is you're executing the cheap spread, and you're buying the cheap spread, however you end up looking at it. And so if the puts are cheap, you're selling the put spread and buying the call spread, and vice versa. So those are my favorite ways to do the skew, and that's all predicated on what the quick skew channel looks like. So I think those are good ways to take advantage of volatility inconsistencies.
Since we're talking about QuikStrike channels here, got a question. This is for you, Nick. This comes from Alan. He wants to know, is Nick going to make a QuikStrike for crypto someday? How about Crypto Strike? What about that? Have you trademarked that yet, Nick? Maybe I shouldn't have said that out loud, because now people know about it. So is that your next big venture over there?
Well, I will say we have both domains, but we will probably go with Quick Crypto for sure. And we do have some facility for you to get that information. Like I said, when there's the ability to do options and more futures, that's why I'd like to see more products, more exchange-based products, because that'll fit right into our wheelhouse. But we do have a product that you can talk to us about that will let us get volatility information and vol skew information and pricing sheet information. So you want to talk about that, shoot me a note either on Twitter or nhoward@bantix, BANTX.com, and I'll be glad to I'll give you the details on how you can get access to that stuff. But yeah, something's coming. It's just a matter of, I want the market to go, I want my enthusiasm to go higher, so I need the market to go higher, so I will put more of my personal and business resource towards actually getting it in the queue and getting it finished, because there are pieces of it that aren't done already.
I know, I'm liking Crypto Strike, Mr. Nick. I don't know. It's resonating with me. I kind of like it. I don't know. So we'll see.
I think I bought it.
We should ask our
already.
Listeners what they want and what they want. QuikStrike or Quick Crypto. But I don't know. I'm kind of feeling QuikStrike. It's got a resonance to it. I like it. That'll be a conversation for another day. Listen, good question there, Mr. Allen. All right, here we got good handle this week. The cheese wants to know. They're still waiting for my big. I'm still waiting for my big dairy options rundown on the show. Love you. Well, love you back, the cheese. We love all of our listeners out there. You guys are all equally loved, even the ones, especially the ones that have cool handles, like the cheese. Big dairy options rundown. You want, huh? Well, allow me to dive into QuikStrike, and you guys can do this yourselves. Go into choose a product, and then go into the agriculture, then dairy, and you can see for yourself just how much is lighting it up right now. In terms of, I pulled up Class 3 milk, for example, a lot of different subcategories of dairy out there for you non-dairy heads. Looks like it goes up slightly. A little bit here. I'm actually kind of unched here on the week from an underlying perspective. And we're seeing, our big, about 14 and a quarter for the second month contract is where the underlying is. And looks like our big trade for the week, a big contract for the week are the 13.75 puts, doing a whopping 616 contracts this week, Mr. DeCheese. So you can probably see why we don't feature milk. We would love to have all these names lighting it up and really doing tons. I've talked to folks at CME about these ones too, and they all admit it's a very shall we say nuanced product. You really got to know what's going on out there. You really have to know the underlying. It's not the kind of thing you want to just dive in usually as Joe Retail and take a flyer on a 10 lot of some Class 3 milk 13.75 puts. It's interesting stuff. But they have all kinds of stuff. They have cash settled butter, cash settled cheese, dry whey, my personal favorite. So a lot of esoteric stuff in the dairy category. Nick, we've been asked this before about I'm pulling up the dry whey. Unfortunately, no options action right now this week in the dry whey. So check back again on that one. Mr. Nick, we've been asked before, we're going to get some milk on the show. And milk's just not delivering. It's not because I'm lactose intolerant, Nick. It's just not bringing the numbers for us.
Yeah, I'm not. I think I learned that after a certain period of time, like you get inside inside the first month or inside a month's expiration, they don't even trade that first contract anymore. So I don't think we know enough. And I do have a couple friends that are in the dairy. Maybe we can see if they're approved enough to come on and educate us a little bit. Maybe we should talk to them and see what we think we can do with that. I don't know. What do you think?
I have talked to some of those folks, and yeah, they've dissuaded me from talking about it on the show. But I think we could. I mean, it's certainly a different type of product category than we usually talk about. And some days it does light it up. We've talked about it before. We see some movements out there in the underlying. So sometimes it does light it up. Perhaps not this week, but it might be worth investigating for future. As lactose intolerant as I am, so the handle and the question, the topic scares me, but we can get into it nonetheless. We're going to get into stuff. We got Options Queen in the chat asking us, what about nat gas? And also saying, put me down for Litecoin options, not Bitcoin options. Well, that wasn't a choice in our poll, but if we have a write-in, I guess. But that means we got to have Litecoin futures first. So you're kind of like two iterations away from seeing that happening. I think we have a better chance of seeing the Bitcoin options first because we already have the future. But, okay, well, duly noted. We'll put you down for that when the time comes. What about nat gas? Let's pull it up here really quick, guys. You guys can do that as well. Nat gas in the QuikStrike. You want to look at the European totals. That's what it's next to it for. You find some of the other ones. They don't really not what you're looking for. Let's see here. Off slightly on the week. They kind of unchanged out here in the nat gas. We were talking for a while before about nat gas being we talked about it on the show before. Obviously, it has had some big weeks. This one not so much in terms of where the action was. Let me see if I can just pull it up here really quick. Looks like May, three even calls, 3.00 calls was lighting it up about 17, nearly 18,000 contracts doing the lion's share of the action this week. Vol up slightly. It kind of depends where you're looking. The front portion of the term structure off a little bit. Mid-curve up slightly. It's kind of a mixed bag out here. Kind of a mixed bag all week here. It looks like for nat gas. OI kind of slight too, only up about 2.5% this week. So not a rock'em sock'em robots week for nat gas like we have seen in some months past. Yeah, those 3 calls were blowing the doors off just about anything else. The next closest thing we've got are the 2.85 calls there in April, doing about 12, just a little bit under 12,000 contracts. The lion's share coming about 6,000 on Wednesday. So there you go. Quick nat gas rundown. Not so much lighting it up. Anything you got on nat gas, Mr. Nick? And what do you think about maybe Litecoin? I know you're a Litecoin fan. Maybe you're put yourself in the right in for Litecoin options as well.
Yeah, no, I would like to see the Litecoin options too. I just think it doesn't really matter. I mean, in the end, it's all just a number where you're measuring volatility, and then people are making markets based on what they think volatility is, right? Isn't that basically what we're looking at here? And the reason I think we need the futures is because then you can have a better option associated with that product, right? To have options on the spot there's plenty of exchanges that have options on the actual Bitcoin themselves, but it leaves you kind of open to the hedging and can you borrow to short the coin? There are some exchanges that are going to be out there that are going to let you borrow coins so you can actually short them as well. But I definitely would like to see the Litecoin. I'd like to see the Ripple too, just because I think that has the highest viability of anything that I've seen so far in terms of having a practical application. So, but yeah, Litecoin I'd like just because of that one you could actually feel comfortable buying the spot if you wanted to, because the price is cheap enough. The other ones are really kind of difficult to get your hands on. Bitcoin to be in $8,500, it's kind of tough.
Yeah, when they're slinging 300 handles at a clip, that's not one you want to just set and forget in the old retirement account. Let's see here. We got time for one more. Ninibus. got good handles this week. Ninibus asking for, everyone's got requests this week, Nick, more livestock on the show. And they also ask, oh yeah, do you, you like this one, you're a burger guy. Do you prefer burgers or tacos? So both ground beef specialties, both delicious. I'm going to lean tacos. I'm more of a taco guy. Mr. Nick, I know you like burgers. You're probably going to lean burgers, huh?
Oh, I'm definitely going to lean burgers, but I will give the taco guy, I'll give this. So next time, get those stand-up corn shells that you can get at the store. They, because they
I've seen those. I totally want to get those because they always fall over when you're making them, right?
They don't fall over, but what you can do, though, is you can make a hamburger and cut it in half and then put your cheese and your other stuff in there and stack it right inside that stand-up shell, and now you got yourself a taco burger.
Oh, you're killing delicious. Me. I haven't had lunch yet, so you're killing me here,
so
sir.
There you go. We'll try that because and then you can make your burger or whatever you want. But that's I love the corn tortilla because it's a great delivery mechanism for any kind of food that you like. So there you go. This week in food options as well.
Yes, this week in food. I'm definitely gonna get myself some of those. I've seen those stand-up taco shells, and I've been very envious of those because they always fall over in my plate, and it's just a mess. So there you go. And burger taco,
big item in our house.
Really. So it's got the Howard seal of approval. There we go.
It does.
I gotta pick one of those bad boys up. In terms of your other question here, you want more livestock? I mentioned lean hogs are actually moving this week, off a few handles, net on the week, off about 3.5% in that front month contract. They're actually doing a little bit of paper this week out here as well. Open interest up about 4%. It was the front month 64 put though. The front month contract settling up about $66. 64 put where the action was. 3,400 of those going up this week. About half of them on Thursday. Net about almost 500. Opening, that was kind of the big trade du jour. Then 69 calls, doing about 17, almost 1,800. Most of that coming on Wednesday. We also saw some 73 puts. Looks like they're lighting it up out here in June, doing about breaking it up about even throughout the week with the good chunk coming on Wednesday. So lion share coming on Wednesday. So there you go. A little bit of hashtag hog love for you there. Surprise. Yeah, a lot of extra products squeaking in there towards the end. That's what happens when our listeners send in their requests. I feel like an old school top 40 radio station. Send in your requests and we'll play it for your lost girlfriend there. We'll do a little bit of hog love. Well, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe you don't want to play that for your lost girlfriend, but still, a lot of requests. It's like Twifo Request Live, Mr. Nick. What do you think?
Yeah, I like it. Let's do it. I like when people are participating.
Twifo Request Live. Get those requests in. You want to dedicate, this week's corn skew breakdown to your beloved? We can do that for you. Dear honey, I love 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 you. Dear honey, I corn skew is elevated this week. That'd be an interesting woman, but hey, to each their own. And speaking of the each their own, Mr. Nick's always got interesting stuff coming out for each and every one of you out there every week over there at QuikStrike, or perhaps someday, #CryptoStrike. Keep an eye on our listeners. But Mr. Nick, while we're waiting for that, what you got up your sleeve for us this week, sir?
Well, first, let's lay a few things to rest. I think when I did look at QuikStrike many months ago, it was already gone. So that thing's gone. Quick Crypto is there, and that will be the brand. We have to stay with the brand. Quick Vol, Quick Crypto, right? Quick End of Day. All those things are going to exist as part of our platform. So you will see that. And like I said, if you have any questions, please feel free to shoot us a note, and I could point you to some stuff that we have available through another party right now. Then what new stuff? So if you take a look at the cmegroup.com/QuikStrike webpage, you will see that there's a big ad right up on top for the new strategy simulator. So you should go take a look at that, because it's a pretty nice tool, and I think we would look forward to getting some feedback from the users out there to see what they think and if they'd like to see anything else. And that is sort of the tip of the iceberg from our spread building tool in general. So if you like that and you come into the subscription version, you can get a really nice look at how to build your trades, look at simulations against same month, different spreads, look at calendar spreads, plot the spreads against the future spread. It's there's some really nice tools out there, and you really should come out there and have a look and see if you like it, right? I think that's important. We point you towards the free stuff a lot, but we deliberately limit that stuff. So take a look at the subscription-based one and see what you think, and I think that you'll find something that you like and something that'll help your trading. And then anything else come out, there's going to be a new tool coming out in the CME. It is an expiration calendar where you're able to see the entirety of the calendar, even futures expirations for, I think it's 15 months, maybe more, and you can download all those as a spreadsheet and have direct links to that, so you can utilize those as part of some sort of automated process. And we are working toward formalizing our QuikStrike Excel add-in, so anybody with a professional subscription will be able to utilize that to some extent, and then enterprise users will have the full API available to them. So there's some pretty good stuff coming out, and then probably near term, big CME tool is going to be a block trade alert, so you'll be able to sign up for alerts and get emails when things occur. So pretty long list right now of stuff that's happening.
That's a good list, sir. Speaking of listings, I'm looking right now at QuikStrike, and you're right, it is taken. There is a squatter there. Guess how much our friend here is listing it for? How much QuikStrike could be yours right now for, Nick, at the buy it now price?
I would say $31,250.
Wow, that's impressive. You've checked it before. You're very close. $27,800 this guy wants.
Yeah, Quick Crypto is around $1,500 to $1,700. So
what are these guys smoking?
It's funny. It's funny. Like no, it's crazy. Like we spell QuikStrike funny, right, without the C. But we also have the regular QuikStrike, and that thing's worth $8,000 or $9,000. It's crazy. So
he thinks someone's actually going to pay $28,000 for this domain. That's good. Good luck for him if he can get that. But that seems, shall we say, a little bit lofty. Call him up, say $500 right now, take it or leave it. And if he doesn't take it, he's a fool.
Never happened.
Well, there you go. He's going to sit on this for a while, I guess, because I don't think there's going to be a lot of takers at $28,000 for CryptoStrike.com. But you guys can be takers for yourself at QuikStrike. Just go on over to Bantix.com, BANTIX.com, sign up for QuikStrike, and you guys can play around with all these cool tools Nick's always talking about here, I'm always using here on the show, and of course you can be ready for when the flood of crypto comes your way, because he's already got all that data in there. They're already playing around with it over there, so you want to check it out for yourself. If you're a crypto head, maybe you're a cheese head like some of our listeners here, or hashtag a hog love, whatever floats your boat, the products are in there. Bantix.com. Sign up for QuikStrike. Get the ball rolling today. And then you can play along live when we do the show. Makes it even that much more fun. Of course, head on over cmegroup.com/Twifo. Get a lot of insights there. You see the live reports while we're doing the show. All sorts of fun stuff. And we know a lot of you in Chicago especially are already celebrating St. Patrick's Day a little bit early. So a happy early St. Patrick's Day to all of you out there. Don't celebrate too hard. Otherwise, you end up doing crazy things like buying CryptoStrike.com for $28,000. And we'll see you next week for more of This Week in Futures Options.
This Week in Futures Options is brought to you by QuikStrike, options pricing and analysis software. QuikStrike offers powerful and flexible options analysis and pricing tools via an easy-to-use web-based interface. View prices on outright options or spreads with comprehensive page-level analysis controls. Build trades, manage risk, or explore historical volatility. QuikStrike has you covered with market data reports ranging from open interest to the term structure of volatility. QuikStrike is the perfect addition to your trading toolkit. Learn more about QuikStrike at bantix.com. That's BANTIX.com. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at QuikStrike1. That's QuikStrike1. This Week in Futures Options is also brought to you by CME Group, the world's leading and most diverse futures and options exchange. CME Group's markets help individuals and businesses around the world manage risks and seize opportunities. CME Group offers the deepest and most liquid options on futures across all asset classes, including interest rates, equity indexes, foreign exchange, energy, agriculture, and metals. For more information and educational resources about futures options at CME Group, visit cmegroup.com/options. This broadcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only and does not constitute trading advice or the solicitation of purchases or sale of any futures or options. The rulebook of the applicable exchange should be consulted as the authoritative source on all current contract specifications.
The preceding program was a production of the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.